Right now, there's a very real chance that a machine is deciding, whether you get to buy a house or whether you go to jail.
Or even if your car should just take a sudden right turn directly into a lake.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, we are living in a society that is just completely saturated with automated decision-making.
completely saturated.
And for a long time, the general assumption was that humans would just use these algorithms as, like, helpful little tools.
Right.
We kind of assumed there would always be a rational human at the end of the line, applying common sense before a final decision was made.
But, I mean, let's be real. The reality is played out quite differently.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Human nature just tends to default to the path of least resistance. We place this incredible amount of blind trust in automated systems, kind of assuming the math must just be infallible.
Yeah, because it's a computer, so it must be right.
Exactly. You look at the sheer number of people who have literally driven their vehicles into bodies of water.
It's wild.
Right. Just because their GPS confidently commanded them to turn.
Just turned right into the ocean.
And sure, that's a microscopic individual failure, but we scale that exact same blind trust up to global proportions.
Right, like with the banks.
Yes, the subprime mortgage crisis was heavily fueled by flawed algorithmic modeling assumptions. The systems basically assumed housing prices would perpetually rise, humans blindly trusted that output, and, well, the global financial system nearly collapsed as a result.
Because when a machine fails, it often fails in ways that are completely alien to us, right?
Completely.
It lacks that baseline common sense. So as these algorithms start taking over consequential decisions about your health, your wealth, your fundamental freedoms, the stakes are just too high to shrug our shoulders and blame the computer.
Yeah, if the computer did it isn't a valid excuse anymore.
Exactly. We have to figure out how to hold an algorithm accountable. We have to figure out how to make a machine explain its reasoning.
And that is the central, urgent legal issue we are tackling through this fantastic report from the Berkman Klein Center Working Group on AI interpretability.
Which is the core of our deep dive today.
Right, and this isn't just theoretical musing for computer scientists anymore, you know? Regulators are actively wrestling with this right now.
Yeah, the law is trying to catch up.
Exactly. The European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, contains this highly debated language in Articles 13 through 15 and Article 22 that seemingly establishes a, quote, right to explanation for citizens subjected to automated decision-making.
Wow. An actual right to explanation.
Right. And in the United States, agencies like DARPA are pouring millions into research programs dedicated entirely to engineering explainable AI.
Millions.
But before anybody can mandate that a machine explain itself, we kind of have to establish a philosophical baseline, like what actually constitutes an explanation in the real world.
Okay, let's unpack this because I think we need to draw a hard line right out of the gate here. The tech industry often uses the word transparency when what we actually need is an explanation.
Yes, those are very different things.
Entirely different beasts. The report uses this fantastic framing to separate the two. It says transparency is like handing someone the universal laws of gravity or giving them a comprehensive cookbook on the chemical reactions of baking.
Okay.
But an explanation is the specific human interpretable logic behind why one particular apple fell from a tree or why one specific cake burned in your oven.
Right, the specific instance. And the UK House of Lords recently emphasized this exact distinction in their own regulatory review.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If a company hands a forensic auditor the raw, unedited source code of an artificial intelligence model like this sprawling architecture with billions of mathematical weights and parameters, that technically qualifies as technical transparency.
I mean, what are you supposed to do with that?
Exactly. It is entirely useless for accountability. That code will not tell you why the system rejected your specific loan application on a Tuesday.
Handing me a hard drive with 10 million lines of code is basically just a distraction technique at that point.
It is. A legally operative explanation must be an abstracted, simplified justification that's tailored to a single particular outcome.
I need the logic in human terms.
And to achieve that, what's fascinating here is that a true explanation has to deliver at least one of two specific elements.
Okay, what are they?
First, it should provide human interpretable information about the main factors used in the decision and rank them by their relative weight.
Huh.
The system needs to clearly state the top three variables that, tip the scale.
That makes total sense, like your credit score, your debt-to-income ratio, and your employment history.
Exactly. And second, and this is arguably the most powerful tool for legal accountability, the explanation must answer counterfactual questions.
Counterfactuals, okay.
Right. It needs to map the exact boundary of the decision by testing hypothetical scenarios. So, if your reported income had been $5,000 higher, would the loan have been approved?
Oh, I see.
Or if we changed the geographic zip code of the applicant, would the outcome have flipped? By isolating those determinative factors, regulators can check for internal consistency and give the affected person a tangible way to contest the decision.
That counterfactual piece is crucial because it actually gives you a path forward, right?
Exactly.
But it raises a really interesting question about our own social norms.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. As humans, we don't walk around demanding an exhaustive counterfactual explanation for every single interaction we have.
We really don't.
The report has this great analogy. Think about walking into a casino. You put all your chips on Black 17 at the roulette table. The wheel spins, and you win big.
Nice.
Nobody in the casino taps you on the shoulder and demands a rigorous explanation of your betting strategy.
Right, because there is no societal harm occurring in that moment and there's no recourse required.
Right.
It is an isolated, non-repeatable event. Knowing your internal logic for picking Black 17 provides absolutely no benefit to the broader community.
But flip the scenario. Say you hand your entire retirement savings over to a licensed financial advisor, and a month later, they have lost every single penny.
Oh, yeah.
You are kicking down their door, demanding to see their logic. You demand the explanation because the harm is catastrophic.
Synthesizing those human social norms actually reveals 3 specific triggers that compel society to demand an explanation.
Okay, what are the triggers?
Number 1, there is a high impact on an individual or a community.
Sure.
Number 2, there's a real possibility of correcting an error or compensating a victim if the decision was made improperly.
Okay, that makes sense.
And number 3, there is a strong visceral suspicion that an error actually occurred.
Oh, the report mentions a scenario that perfectly captures that third trigger.
The surgeon one.
Yes. Imagine a surgeon who decides to delay a critical, life-saving operation strictly because of the current phase of the moon.
The moment you hear that, your suspicion radar goes completely off the charts.
Like, wait, what?
Right. The input, the lunar cycle, is entirely irrelevant to the established scientific domain of medicine. It triggers an immediate demand for an explanation.
Oh, totally.
And the same mechanism applies if an autonomous vehicle is cruising down a perfectly straight, empty highway on a sunny day and suddenly swerves into a ditch. Right. The outcome is so inexplicably bizarre that our social contract dictates the decision maker owes us a justification.
So, because our human demands for an explanation are so deeply intertwined with measuring harm, catching errors, and seeking compensation, the ultimate battleground for all this accountability is the legal system.
Absolutely.
And the authors of the Berkman-Klein report looked at how the law currently treats human decision makers to figure out how we should treat algorithms.
Right.
And they found a massive, fascinating double standard in how we judge our own peers.
Yeah, when you look at the legal system as a decision-making apparatus, the standards for explanation vary wildly depending on who is making the choice.
Okay, how so?
Well, consider administrative agencies or federal judges. Under the legal frameworks of the US, the UK, France, or Germany, those entities are heavily burdened with explaining their reasoning.
They have to write it all down.
Exactly. If an administrative agency issues a new regulation without generating a massive detailed record of their factual findings,
Right.
or if a judge hands down a ruling without a written opinion detailing the legal grounds, a higher court will strike the decision down as arbitrary and capricious.
Wow.
The written explanation is the absolute bedrock of their authority.
But here's where it gets really interesting. You look at a jury. You pull 12 random citizens out of their normal lives, sit them in a box, and hand them the power to make the most consequential decisions imaginable.
Literally life or death.
They can literally take away a person's life or freedom.
Yeah.
Yet juries operate as complete legal black boxes.
It's true.
Rules of procedure in both the US and the UK explicitly forbid lawyers from interrogating juries about the internal reasoning behind their verdicts. They walk into the courtroom, say the word guilty or not guilty, and they are dismissed.
It feels entirely contradictory to the standard we hold a judge to, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely backwards.
But there is a profound structural necessity for that black box. The legal system intentionally shields juries from having to explain themselves to protect the jurors, and the system
Oh,
itself.
because of the backlash.
Exactly. If a jury were forced to publicly justify a highly unpopular yet legally sound verdict, they would be subjected to immense, potentially dangerous social pressure.
Oh, absolutely. People would go after them.
Furthermore, if every jury's internal deliberation could be picked apart, scrutinized, and appealed by aggressive lawyers looking for a single misused
We'd
adjective,
never finish a trial.
exactly, we would be bogged down in interminable retrials. Society sacrifices a degree of transparency in that specific instance to maintain public confidence in the finality of trials.
But there are rare exceptions, though, right? I mean, you don't just get a free pass if you blatantly break the rules of the court.
Correct. Juries can occasionally be asked to return special verdicts, where they don't give a narrative explanation but simply answer specific, factual yes or no questions on a form. And the legal veil can be pierced in extreme circumstances. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Pena Rodriguez v. Colorado that if there is undeniable evidence of a forbidden input,
Forbidden input.
right, specifically, a juror making clear statements indicating they relied on racial bias to reach a verdict, the court can break open that black box and review the decision.
Oh, wow.
But the
Right.
baseline rule is absolute protection.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? If you're sitting there wondering why the legal system gives human juries a pass, but we want AI to be perfectly transparent, it's because we are constantly balancing the need for accountability against the sheer cost of generating the explanation.
Exactly.
Asking humans to explain everything takes too much time, costs too much money, and creates too much social friction. We only demand explanations for very specific, localized decisions under very specific conditions.
Which brings the entire debate back to the algorithms.
Right.
If the legal standard only requires a local, highly specific, counterfactual explanation, can an artificial intelligence actually provide that without completely undermining the tech industry?
Because this is where the tech companies start panicking, right?
Oh, absolutely panicking.
If a regulator demands to know why an algorithm denied a specific loan, the company is going to argue that explaining the decision requires exposing their billion-dollar proprietary source code.
Trade secrets, yes.
They are terrified of handing over their trade secrets under the guise of legal accountability. So wait, if they aren't going to open the black box, how do we get the counterfactual? Are they building some kind of wrapper around the AI to guess what it's doing?
Well, the computer science community has actually developed an incredibly elegant technical architecture for exactly this problem.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they utilize a concept called local counterfactual faithfulness. We abandon the idea of understanding the AI's global behavior entirely.
Okay.
Instead, engineers build an explanation system as a completely distinct secondary module that sits adjacent to the proprietary model. Oh. So the main AI, the billion-dollar black box, stays securely locked. Nobody looks inside.
It remains entirely sealed.
Wow.
The secondary explanation system simply observes from the outside. If you look at Figure 1 in the report, it maps this out perfectly. It looks at the exact same data inputs going into the black box, and it records the final output coming out.
Okay.
Then, it systematically perturbs the inputs for that local instance.
Perturbs them.
Right. It runs hundreds or thousands of microscopic variations. It changes the applicant's income by $1, then $10, then $1,000.
Oh, just tweaking it slightly.
Exactly. Swaps the zip code. It alters the debt ratio. By rapidly probing the black box with these tweaked inputs, the explanation system maps the exact boundary of the decision and generates a simplified, human-interpretable rule just for that specific instance.
That is wild. It's like standing outside a heavily guarded fortress in the pitch dark, throwing different sized rocks at the wall until you map out exactly where the hidden gate is.
You never actually go inside, but you figure out exactly what triggers the mechanism.
That is a perfect analogy. And from a regulatory standpoint, this architecture is a massive breakthrough.
I bet.
It proves that society can extract legally operative explanations, identifying those key factors and answering counterfactual questions without forcing developers to surrender their intellectual property.
Because it's a separate system.
Exactly. And because this probing happens in a secondary module, it doesn't degrade the speed or the accuracy of the main predictive algorithm.
Okay, so we have this great detective module successfully mapping the boundary of the black box. But I feel like there's a fatal flaw here.
What's that?
What language are the detective and the black box speaking? Because it sure isn't English. I mean, an AI does not perceive the world using human concepts.
Ah, Yes, this is the massive communication barrier known as the concept mapping challenge.
Right. Because think about driving a car. You look out the windshield, you see a shiny patch in the asphalt, and your human brain instantly categorizes that visual data into the abstract concept of an ice patch. Right.
An autonomous vehicle does not see an ice patch. It sees an array of millions of individual pixel color values from a camera, cross-referenced with high-dimensional radar returns and LiDAR timing data.
Exactly.
Or take a hospital setting. A human doctor observes a patient shivering with a fever and low blood pressure, and they synthesize the concept of sepsis. The clinical AI just sees a matrix of 40,000 raw billing codes, lab values, and procedural timestamps.
And that's the core of the problem. If regulators want an explanation system to answer a human question like, did the autonomous car swerve because it detected an ice patch? Engineers have to translate those millions of raw data points into a legally recognized concept.
It sounds incredibly hard.
It is. And critically, this translation must happen ex ante.
Ex ante, meaning before the fact.
Yes, it has to be engineered into the system up front, long before the AI ever makes a decision. You have to train the system with massive data sets explicitly labeled to map raw inputs to human terms.
But hold on, that completely breaks from how we treat humans.
How do you mean? Well, if a patient sues a doctor for a decision made 3 weeks ago, that doctor doesn't need to have pre-registered their definition of sepsis.
True.
They can sit down in a deposition and generate an explanation ex post, like after the fact. They draw on their memory, pull from their experience, and construct a narrative. We rationalize things constantly. A machine can't do that.
No, it can't. An artificial intelligence possesses perfect mathematical memory and feels zero social pressure to save face, but it is entirely inflexible.
Wow.
If developers do not explicitly engineer the AI to track the abstract concept of an ice patch from day one of its deployment, it cannot retroactively assemble that concept during a lawsuit a year later.
Oh, man.
It cannot explain what it was never taught to conceptualize.
Which I think opens the door to the most insidious problem with algorithmic decision-making.
Yeah.
Proxies.
It's a proxy problem.
Let's say the law dictates that an AI cannot use a person's race to determine their eligibility for a mortgage. The intuitive human solution is to just go into the database and delete the column labeled race. If the machine can't see the demographic data, it can't be racist. Problem solved, right?
But that intuitive solution completely fails when dealing with high-dimensional machine learning models.
Because it's too smart.
Because these systems don't look at 5 or 6 clean variables, they process thousands of minute overlapping data points. Even if you scrub the explicit race category, the algorithm looks at a loan applicant's specific zip code.
Right.
It looks at the specific brand of cosmetics they purchase with their grocery rewards card. It analyzes their healthcare utilization rates, their magazine subscriptions, and their digital browsing history.
And it weaves all of those seemingly innocent random threads together.
Precisely. It mathematically correlates those behaviors to perfectly reconstruct the very demographic variable you tried to hide.
That is terrifying.
The machine doesn't conceptualize race in a human sense, but it groups these highly correlated data points together to form a proxy. The algorithm ends up making highly discriminatory decisions, but the discrimination is entirely cloaked beneath a matrix of thousands of indirect variables.
So wait, to prove that a machine isn't using a proxy for race, we basically have to do the opposite of what feels right. We have to explicitly feed the AI our protected demographic data.
Counterintuitively, yes. The legal system and regulators have to allow developers to collect and measure protected classes like race and gender, strictly so the explanation system can continually run counterfactual audits.
Oh, to check it.
Right, it has to constantly perturb the inputs to ensure the main AI hasn't secretly reconstructed a proxy.
So let's step back and look at the sheer scale of what is required here. We need secondary explanation modules running thousands of perturbations. Yeah. We need ex-ante concept mapping for every possible human variable. We need constant auditing for high-dimensional proxies.
It's a lot.
The engineering overhead is astronomical. If it is this incredibly difficult to build a legally compliant black box, shouldn't we just ban them?
Well, this introduces a vital debate around proportionality. And the Burton-Klein report uses a highly illustrative example to warn against heavy-handed regulation.
Oh, the toaster.
Yes, the smart toaster.
I love this example. Imagine a hardware startup invents a toaster equipped with a simple AI vision model. It looks at the chemical composition of your bread and pops it up when it achieves the perfect golden brown crust.
Sounds great.
But if Congress passes a sweeping blanket law demanding that all artificial intelligence must be fully explainable and counterfactually faithful, that tiny startup is doomed.
Completely doomed.
They now have to spend millions of dollars building a secondary explanation module just so their appliance can legally justify why it thought a piece of sourdough was ready.
Right. The regulatory burden would instantly kill innovation for smaller companies and low-stakes applications. It would force developers to abandon highly accurate, complex models in favor of simpler, less elusive algorithms merely because they're easier to explain to a lawyer.
Which is backwards.
It completely defeats the fundamental purpose of using machine learning to find patterns that elude human comprehension. For the smart toaster, or for highly complex but low-stakes problems, society has to accept alternatives to explanation.
Alternatives like what?
Well, sometimes we don't always need to know the internal logic if we can prove the system is safe.
So if we aren't banning the black box, and we aren't forcing the toaster to explain itself, we just trust it blindly because the bread tastes good.
We establish trust through two alternative pathways. The first is empirical evidence, statistical proof.
Okay, statistics.
Consider a highly complex AI system designed to land commercial airplanes. Generating a localized, human-interpretable explanation for every micro-adjustment of the flaps might be mathematically impossible.
Right, it's doing too much at once.
But if regulators have rigorous statistical data proving that the AI landing system has a dramatically lower crash rate than the best human pilots, that empirical evidence replaces the need for an explanation.
Oh.
Or consider a diagnostic tool that statistically reduces patient mortality across 1 million clinical trials. The empirical results justify the deployment.
It's like, we don't understand the exact mathematical path it took, but it empirically saved 1 million lives, so we are going to keep using it.
Exactly. And the second pathway relies on theoretical guarantees.
Like what?
Think about modern cryptography. When you transmit your credit card number across the internet, you don't demand an English language explanation of how the encryption works.
No, I definitely don't.
You trust it because the underlying architecture relies on formal mathematical proofs that guarantee a specific outcome. If an algorithm like a system used to count votes in an election can be designed to provably adhere to a formal mathematical process, that theoretical guarantee satisfies the requirement for trust.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We started with the very human flaw of blindly driving our cars into lakes because a machine told us to, and we drilled all the way down into the architecture of secondary AI modules, probing black boxes for local counterfactuals.
That's a deep rabbit hole.
We unpacked the danger of high-dimensional proxies reconstructing the data we try to hide, and explored how empirical statistics might just be enough to let a machine land an airplane. The ultimate recommendation from the Berkman Klein Center is remarkably grounded, I think.
Very pragmatic.
As we navigate this massive technological transition, we should simply hold AI to the same standard we hold humans. We demand rigorous explanations when the impact is high, when recourse is possible, and when we suspect a fundamental error. But we shouldn't demand absolute transparency from a smart toaster and suffocate progress.
Precisely. We have to strike that balance.
But as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We have spent this entire deep dive agonizing over how to force machines to explain their choices to us. We want them to translate their perfect, infallible mathematical memory into a neat human narrative.
Right.
But humans are notoriously flawed narrators. We suffer from immense cognitive dissonance. We constantly rewrite our own memories and invent post hoc rationalizations to save face and justify the mistakes we've already made.
Oh, absolutely do.
When these incredibly advanced perfect memory AI explanation systems finally come online and start documenting exactly why decisions are made, will they actually be holding the machines accountable? Or will these systems hold up an unforgiving mirror to society, forcing us to realize just how terrible, biased, and illogical our own human explanations have been all along?
That is a fascinating question.
Next time your GPS commands you to turn directly into a lake, ask yourself, if you actually cranked the wheel and drove into the water, how would you explain it?